be like, that person's rank, and your mate can go, I think that person's the best looking person I've ever seen.
I don't know if that's
occurs. Some people have really interesting ideas.
I think you're right. There is a kind of
I know people who think Brad Pitt's ugly, like actually.
I don't think so.
They think he's not. It's not my thing.
I reckon those people are trying to be alternative. They're not.
I only like...
I think Danny DeVito is actually the best thing. You know what? I think you're just doing this for attention.
What do you like? Sasquatch. He's my man.
Sacha Baron Cohen as... was he? What was the guy?
Borat.
That's
there's someone's thing.
Male.
Not like a hairy bloke, skinny, tall.
No, I don't know.
Thick hair.
Not sure.
A little bit of misogyny.
I think there are universal...
Yeah.
because I get some crap from some of my mates when I was a bachelor back in the day. And they would say,
that makes a lot of sense. Then I see what's happening.
Yeah. What's your like type? Blonde hair, blue eyes. I actually just think women are quite attractive. So that's sort of the general gist of it.
But what's your list? Woman.
Yes. Hello and welcome to Two Blokes in a Cave, a vaguely philosophical podcast hosted by me, Carlton Sin, and my good friend Cameron Wright. Pretty casual episode today, no collared shirts. It's very, very hot in the Brisbane summer, and the cave does not come with any aircon or ventilation at all, actually.
Man.
So
I'm oily as...
With the studio lights, we are a very, very sweaty bunch. So let's jump right in today. We're going to be talking a little bit about the... sort of, I guess, ethics, like biological ethics, but, I guess eugenics as a broad question. And I think specifically, if we can alter the human genome in utero, should we do that?
Yeah, that's the crux of it.
I think that's sort of, to be honest, I think that's kind of where we're going with some of the medical developments.
Some of the stuff, yeah.
It does seem like people talk about the idea that we can identify with a really, really high degree of accuracy potential future ailments to a person when they're in utero. I think, unfortunately, most of this is like IVF, and then they kind of select out certain things, which obviously I find quite difficult to grasp with my sort of religious stance. But, let's open it to the floor. Cameron,
the floor.
The resident philosophical expert.
Yeah.
What's your initial thoughts on potentially altering the human genome as it is currently sort of applied, and potentially the applications in the future? What's your thoughts on that initially, or what's the first thing that comes to your mind when people say that?
Oh, okay, fair. I guess that's a good point. Yeah, first thing, it comes in two parts to me. It's like, are you altering it to remove sickness, ailments, or disease potentially, or are you altering it to benefit your specific aesthetic that you'd like, or a trait that you'd want to exist that may not have,
like blonde
potentially
hair,
yeah, exactly. Do you want your kid to be 6'3"?
I do. I stretch my boy all the time, get him on the protein and the steaks. Exactly. I'm like, we should get him diesel.
Yeah just swinging him around a little bit, stretch him out.
Just watch football highlights. Like, you're going to be an absolute machine.
Yeah. That's the way it works for me. Like, two things, and like I guess if they're and also like how much does the knowledge portray? Like, if they don't entirely 100% fully have a grasp on exactly what it's going to do, if you change a bunch of stuff, it's a very, very complicated. Some of these genomes, like some of the actual genes, supposedly they don't exactly know. Like they're some of them, like, this is blue eyes, this is blonde hair, whatever. But some of them, it's like they're still figuring out what the combination's doing and which one's which.
I think some of the stuff I've read has suggested that they can spot sort of physical defects that will manifest like 30, 40 years into the future.
Yeah.
So that's
interesting.
Yeah, that will arise or have a higher percentage chance to arise way down the line as you grow up, develop as a normal person, become an adult, and then you get hit with this, or you have a higher chance of being diabetic or something. Yeah, definitely. Which is pretty wild to me that that's even possible. It's very, very kind of a miracle of modern medical science, frankly, to be able to sort of see the future like that. But to alter it, I think it does boil down to a simple sort of two-parter. You can separate: are you eliminating disease, or are you enhancing the subject? I think that's a fair way to classify.
That's same,
basically.
Yeah.
And I think I'm morally opposed to both.
Right.
And I think, and I've said this before, I've been laughed at many a time before, talking about the sort of the perfect state of nature is that it's imperfect. And the sort of, I don't want to say like accidental or anything, but the fact that it doesn't have, not everything's smooth. There are some jagged edges, I think is quite beautiful. And to try and perfect the state of man, politically it's been a disaster. I think spiritually has been really, really bad. And I think physically it's probably going to end pretty poorly too. And I would kind of go so far as to suggest that there's already been some or several historical examples where you might point to and say, this is an example of an ethnic group trying to perfect their bloodline or their ethnicity. And then you've got similar things happening, I think, in China during the one-child policy, where it's like you have one child. A lot of children that might not be, as strong. We're talking like ancient Sparta stuff, where they're just throwing babies into the abyss type stuff. Like, it's a bit sickly, doesn't look like a big, strong, healthy baby. Maybe it's not worth keeping at all.
Right.
We've only got one
limited resources
child.
Yeah,
we can only have one child. We're not interested in raising a cripple or someone that might not have the best chance of survival, which is pretty like this is like Animal Planet brutality.
Yeah.
I think it might have been Brendos, producer Brendos, a video of a bird, and this particular type of bird, I think it might have been a stork of some kind. It's in a nest and it has 3 chicks, and it can only really look after 2. So the weakest of the 3, the mum just like picks up and then throws off the nest to die. Like the chick's still alive. It's actually one of the most savage things. I get a little emotional thinking about it. 'Cause like I have young kids. I'm like, this is crazy. Yeah. And like the bird's not even like so small that it's like, oh, it's obviously going to die. Like it's just not as big as the other ones. Like, it's gone. And the bird, it's getting picked up and it's squealing and it's like terrified and its mum's like, see ya. Like that's insane. Like that's an insane level of like altruism. I think trying to like, what am I going to do? Survival of like, I don't know. I think
I've seen that, and I think if it even like falls down and hits the ground, and I think the insinuation is like it's so small in surface area and body weight, it's not going to die. Might just be crippled and die over like the next day. Or get eaten by ants, or like something
like some
shitty,
horrifically painful death.
And you think, well, maybe you're better off just to just bite its neck out, like throw it out of the
maybe
nest.
like eat it or something. I don't know.
That seems a little better. I mean, some of the animals do that. They eat the young and they bum around with it. Yeah.
No, people think like they could take a bear. They can't. You can't.
You can't take a bear. No, you could if you had like a machine gun.
I just don't want to be anywhere near a bear. It just seems like the scariest thing. And I mean, that's a long-winded way of saying no. Don't do that, because that just makes us more advanced animals, and I maintain that there is a separation between man and beast, even if you can clarify us as mammals. That doesn't necessarily mean that we are the same as the beast in the field. But I digress. We shouldn't be throwing out our babies.
This is quite interesting analogy, because I'm imagining like the genome or the helix is like a bunch of little chickens, and we're just like, you want some of this booze, and what are we like smushing it into the like petri dish? You want to live, do you? Like, I mean, it seems a little extreme.
It's awful. But that is so a fair bad. Like that is, in fairness, that is what, and I think it's good to point out the brutality of eugenics and of the future potential brutality of eugenics, or like, I think it's called something sexy like selective birth. Like, it has like these little fancy euphemisms where like, I'm not killing babies. I'm just pro-choice. Like, what are you talking about? Like, your choice is to kill. Like, what are you talking about? It's ridiculous. The point is, like, it is a brutal reality. If you're trying to create the most perfect baby, lots of babies you're going to look at and say didn't make the cut.
Right, where's the line here? Yeah. So I guess if you go back to that, I kind of am kind of for eliminating disease, but where's the line start and end? What is the disease? It's really rough, because this is a label, and that stuff actually changes and fluctuates over time.
Sure.
So, for example, if we know for a fact this is a debilitating disease that you're going to get and you're not going to live past 8 years old, I don't think anyone would really be like, yeah, let's do that. And even when the kid itself would probably be like, well, why don't you just eliminate that shit? It probably wouldn't have been ideal, and it probably wouldn't have changed too much else. Hopefully, you know.
Sitting right next to you. How could you say that?
No, but you know what I mean. That's
awful.
in utero.
Awful
Yeah,
thing
but
to
like,
say.
what? Yeah, we're just yeah.
Been friends for so long.
Well, yeah. You could have been so much taller. No, I'm just kidding.
That's
terrible.
true.
No,
Big
no,
more
no,
D.
no. I mean, you're fucking way bigger than me. So
Mate, I mean, I think one of the episodes we've got on the cards is this idea of suffering.
I don't mean anything by that.
No, that's all right. Like this idea of suffering. And I think the modern perception of suffering is that it cannot be tolerated and it must be eliminated at all costs in every aspect of life.
People are afraid of it, yeah.
Well, yeah, and the Prime Minister, or former Prime Minister of England, was it Raji Sunak?
The one just
got
that's
voted out. He actually wrote a pretty lengthy op-ed in, I think it was the Herald or one of these newspapers, talking about how it was in defense of the new MAID legislation that's been passed. We've got an episode coming up on that. And he was talking about how as a civilized society, we should, at every opportunity, eliminate suffering from the basically from the human existence. And I think, and I hope you agree, because I think you'll agree, but that is a terrible, terrible way to live life without suffering, without challenge, without hardship. What is life? You're in the Matrix, essentially. Like if you just have no
stuff is all coming back to be relevant at the same point.
Yeah,
but I mean, I know what you mean.
Still the same cave.
It depends. Unnecessary suffering that doesn't seem to be ending and is really extreme. I'm not entirely sure I'm for. If it's not,
does it not
point,
build some calluses?
If you're like, no, it depends. If it's like fully just. Never, I don't know. It's different. There's different forms of suffering.
Well, it's definitely
there's angst and anguish.
Life is kind of suffering.
Yeah, well, that's a Buddhist line, I think. Yeah.
I think that's all. I don't know. I can't say all, but I think that's a pretty standard religious thing. Is like life is hard, and what do they say? Like, do not pray for an easy life. Pray to be a stronger man.
That's true. There is a lot of point in that, and I'm switching a little bit in some respects. I think Brendan wanted to pop in real quick and say a little tidbit. Yeah.
Hey, so just on the suffering and or struggle, what I heard, I thought it was quite interesting that Adolf Hitler's book is Mein Kampf. I'm probably not pronouncing that right, but Kampf means struggle in German, and there is a German. I'll look it up and put it on the screen, but there is a German compliment that they give each other, that you are struggling quite well. You are a good struggle, and it kind of translates to you're a good fighter. You fight well. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, that is cool. Did you mention Mein Kampf just
Yeah,
then?
I was going to say...
That's very cool, though. Like, I did know that was my struggle.
I knew it was my struggle. I didn't think about anything about it. I catch a little bit of that. Because Kampf struggle.
Yeah.
And...
Mine is like... Mine.
Yeah, we're talking about the infamous book that shall not be named, which you just named it. Yeah. But like, is it a good thing? Like, I guess it's a positive thing.
I think struggling is how you grow. Like, nothing grows without struggle, I would say. I suppose my issue with the idea that we can eliminate struggling, or that, again, I think you can only say suffering has no value retrospectively. You have to have done the period of struggle, looked back and gone, oh, there was no reason for that. And even then, your vision is quite narrow. You don't have the kind of, generally speaking, you don't have the breadth or the width to go, oh, maybe this actually did inspire X amount of people to do great things, or it did have some profound effect on people around you. So I'm not convinced in that argument that we should avoid suffering. I think if probably, to be honest, if more people did have to overcome adversity, we might be a little better prepared for the trials and tribulations of life. because there are ups and downs. Like there are peaks and troughs in life that you can't avoid, even when things are going well. And I know producer Brendos killing it. I'm killing it. We're married, and marriage is a wonderful.
What about me? Am I killing? Yeah, fair
not
enough.
married, not Catholic. No, joking. But yeah, what I'm trying to say is like I think the most eligible bachelor in Oxley is Cameron.
It's somewhere in the suburbs.
It's somewhere in Oxley.
Yeah.
But that person, if they're going on dates, the purpose of going on dates is to find a woman that you marry. That's the conclusion, or like we would say, like the telos of dating is to marry and have a family. That's the natural progression of the act, right? So, and my point is, even when you reach the culmination of sort of virtues that lead you to the apex of the mountain, you get married, you have a family, your family's going really well. There are still days where it's like, this is really hard. Like, there's a hard thing to have a family. Like, it's not all easy, even though I would look back and I try to every day and like think about all the good things that happen, because I'm like, I'm so grateful to have a family. It's such a wonderful thing. Even though there could be 3 hours where you're just banging your head against the wall, like, this is really hard. Like, just please eat your toast and go to bed. Like, what's going on? Why are you upset? Why are you just, not able to control your emotions? And you're just, making my life really, really hard and kind of miserable. And that happens. And like, there'll be times where, if you've got young kids, if anyone's watching, you'll know, like, they just won't sleep very well. They'll have a night or a week of nights where they sleep 2 hours at a time. They wake up screaming and it's awful, and you're tired and it sucks. But also when they're, during the day, they're awake, they run into your arms and call out for you. It's the most beautiful feeling in the world. And I just think people are too quick to overlook the like any of the trials, but the trials are often like come before like some really, really, like jubilation, I suppose. And I'm trying to think of an example. This could be a horrible example, I'm not sure, but like when your son like falls over and grazes his knee, like that's sad. I feel very bad. Like, you don't want to see your kid in pain, but when they stand up and run to you, and they come to you as like this sort of beacon of safety and security and love, it is actually a pretty awesome experience. Like, for this person, I'm kind of the man. Like, I'm the guy who just takes away all the pain, makes all the problems go away, and a hug from dad, and everything's good, and I can go back to playing on my bike. And that's kind of a pretty amazing feeling too. Do you know what I mean? Like, and it's one of those things that you can't have that feeling specifically if there's no fall before. And then to see, you see your kids overcome adversity, it's a very proud, and it's a cool thing, because, like I said, we all have things we're dealing with, we all deal with things. And I think the suffering that we experience is good. Like, even when we were working kind of, basic jobs while we're at uni, like, they're not fun jobs, but they do teach you things about, if nothing else, about yourself, what you're willing to do to, to learn skills, or the discipline that it takes to keep a job, things like that. Like, you learn about yourself, and you learn about, even the value of money, I guess, at a very rudimentary level, but you suffer for that because it's not a fun time. And I think we had some 4 a.m. starts. Like, that's not fun when you're in your early 20s. You want to be out having a good time.
It's true. I like it worked overnight a few times. Like
very tough. Yeah, like not a fun experience at all. But like, that is suffering, right? Because obviously, I'd rather just work the minimum that I can in the most comfortable possible working conditions. But that doesn't really help you in the long term if because then if you want to be a doctor, or can you do a 16-hour shift? Can you push through uncomfortable working conditions, sore feet, tired, foggy? Like, can you overcome? Can you push through because you want to? And I think working at on the checkout line at Coles actually can help you with that, because no one wants to be there, and it's an 8-hour shift, and everybody's telling you the same thing, same jokes. Yeah, like it would get really difficult.
Busy day.
Open some more registers. You can see we're short staffed, Susan. Why don't you put your resume in? Yeah, unbelievable. No, but I think I'm completely opposed to the
Right.
idea, and it sounds good. And this is the thing that annoys me, is because it kind of sounds, if you're not paying attention and you just hear the argument in passing, we should eliminate suffering. People go, yeah, that sounds great. Why would you be pro suffering? But I'm not pro suffering for suffering's sake. I'm pro all the goodness and all the great that comes from suffering. You see any athlete, if you're into sports, if you're into, Formula One driving, if you're into chess, if you're into the arts, nobody gets to the top without suffering and sacrificing to get there. And I just think that if you take away suffering, you take away excellence. So we should embrace the suck.
I guess so, but like, I agree to a point, but like some of those things I don't think are, in my opinion, suffering. I think they're more like struggle. Like, I reckon without doing certain things, you can't become a certain way. Like you require negativity and you require pressure and you require things to test your current beliefs, values, and abilities in order to like, get better in certain respects. But like I'd say that's more stuff like pressure. It's like struggle. It's like discipline. It's like building character. You can have emotional suffering and emotional like awakening. I don't know if like pure, like when I'm saying suffering, like like torture, like pure suffering for no end that doesn't mean anything. It's like vaguely, like how many lessons could you probably learn from this?
Can you define or give me
It'd have to be like a debilitating disease that like pretty much stops you from doing anything. So like if
but
you
then,
but can barely can't
nothing
move.
is, like there's not that much suffering then at all, really.
If you can't move due to like extreme pain.
But how many people on the planet can't move because of extreme pain?
Very little. But like how many people?
That's what I'm saying though. Like, it has to be a broader definition than the absolute extreme where you can't. And is that can't move? Is that indefinite? Because I've had periods where I can't move for several weeks.
Yeah.
So it's just, to me, it's, are we being too clever by half, in the sense that like we're trying to pass it out, but it's just the same thing. Ultimately, like what is the, or how, what to you is suffering versus struggle? Or can you give me how you separate those in your mind for yourself?
I was just reading, Brendan's got a good little point here. I'm just going to just absorb it real quick. But my own point, like it's, so there has to, like, so you're talking about like temporary suffering if you had like a pain or an injury, that would, you could learn something about yourself through the struggle, through the pain. How do you deal with certain adversity? That's like an adversity type of thing. Actual full suffering is kind of like a beaten. It'd have to, I guess what you're saying, there is a point where it's not really valuable until you look back hindsight. Like, was there an actual thing here? But you could basically, like, let's just say you can't like, I don't know, you can't move your left knee or something.
Yeah.
And you'd love to be able to do certain things, but you can't. How many lessons can you learn over like 20 years of not being able to move your knee? Like at some point you'd be like, well, maybe we should fix this. Like I think I've learned the lesson of how much pain I can endure here. Now it's just like a point where it's just like ruining parts of things I'd like to do. It's not like making any full net benefit to my actual life. Like for example, so if what you're saying is suffering's good, and I'd say suffering is good, or not suffering, but at least testing and like learning and experiencing certain things to a point is good, then you could argue that like maximum suffering is better. And then that's like extreme, but it comes to a point where it actually kind of removes the positive and there's no net benefit if you're just suffering all the time. There's only so much certain people can take and still stay productive in life and like actually learn. Like some suffering would be so extreme that you couldn't even really like think properly. It would like ruin your whole thing. So I don't know what sort of like lessons you'd be learning from that.
Well, not every lesson is about you or for you, I suppose.
Yeah.
To start with, I want to tell a story that I think's topical. Let me know if it is not at all.
No, go for it.
So my old man, very, very physically active guy, loves sports, loves to run around and play, which is awesome. And he said to me, he said, I think I'd rather, if I fell off a roof or had an accident where I was a paraplegic or a quadriplegic, I wouldn't want to live anymore.
Right.
And I was like, that's kind of a little bit immature and easy to say when you're running around like, yeah, I wouldn't want to do that.
Right.
But I said to him, I'm like, well, it's not just your life is not just yours. Like you have a profound impact on me, my brother, my sister, my kids, and it's almost selfish to say like, well, this would just be suffering. I love to be physical and to move around, and now I need someone to help me go to the bathroom. But hang on, I can still have, in this scenario, I can still have conversations with you. You can still impart wisdom to your family.
Yeah.
Generations of people can still come and sit with you and talk to you. So I think, and I obviously said that to him, and he was like, yeah, well, that's probably not a bad point. I don't want to kill myself because of it. But the idea that life has no meaning because you've taken away what you love most, being like, he's a very, very physical guy, loves to play, play tennis, play a bit of touch football, still keep active with his mates, go cycling, which are all wonderful things to do. And if you took that away from him, that would be an unending struggle for him.
Oh yeah, that sounds bad. It's probably part of his self-image and
100%,
how he thinks
definitely.
of his own.
But I'm saying is like, that is terrible, and it is that's going to be pushing the rock up the mountain. It's going to suck. But what you might learn as a hypothetical is like, well, I have value that is not inherently linked to my physical performance or my physical ability to do things.
Right.
And I can still connect really profoundly with people that care about me, and I can still live a full life, even if I can't do some of the things that I want to be able to do. And I think that's important because I struggle with the idea that just because we can't see an avenue for something doesn't mean it's no good or bad. It could be other people who are, that see or know my father and go, well, look at Steve. Like he's still, in good spirits, even though he's had this horrible accident and it's completely shattered his self-image and self-esteem and all the rest of it. Maybe I should do better, or maybe whatever I'm dealing with right now is I can see how to get myself out of this sort of struggle.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Small trough I can overcome now because I've seen other people do it that I know or have connection with, and I just think the value of life is so great that you can never just say, well, I think this is what I do. Well, until you're there, until you're in that moment, it would be purely speculative. Like, what do you like? Because if you couldn't walk anymore, you'd be on time for everything. We'd pick you up. If you couldn't walk anymore,
right.
That's where you're wrong. I'd still be like, no, that's but your life would fundamentally change, and there would be a degree of suffering because when you see people walking or running and you can't, it would hurt a little bit, especially if you've been able to walk and run for a long period of time. It would hurt. It would
of course. Yeah, it wouldn't be spectacular.
But you could also be like, you know what? Still got my friends pick me up, come to the beach. They just park me on the sand. I'll run off in the water. But like, I'm still here. I'm
sinking. Somebody. No, yeah.
But and I just think that's one of those things where you can get so focused on like the negative aspect of a period of suffering, and then you can miss the forest for the trees on the other end. Where you're like, well, no suffering is really, I would say, the pure suffering stuff that I think you're talking about. I don't know if any of it is forever in the sense that like physical pain will always be with us.
Yeah.
And obviously, my story, like I still have little bits of pain in my hands and there's dexterity issues that I have. They'll never go away. I'll never like change, but I don't consider that to be a suffering for me personally. Like I wouldn't consider myself to be suffering right now, even though, things are what they are. And like, there are some issues that I have to deal with, not major issues, but just things that annoyances, I suppose, maybe more struggles, I don't know.
Right.
But this idea to me, like having been around hospitals and seen people that are really sick or chronically ill or have these ailments, I'm like, well, there is a point where if your entire life the pain is a 6, that becomes your baseline. In a way. Do you know what I mean? Like if your life is just a 0 in terms of pain, like you have no pain ever. Yeah. You get a paper cut, it's the worst thing in the whole world because it's it's mildly annoying for you. But if you are living with pain, like it becomes like, this is what I deal with. This is my cross to carry, as the Christians would say. Right. Like we all have something, and it might not be necessarily physical. It could be, struggling with vanity for being the most eligible bachelor, perhaps. I don't know.
So hard.
It's not easy, just so much attention. But
I get it all on this podcast during the week, to be fair.
It's just, we all have a cross to carry. And, the suffering, physically, so I think physical suffering is probably easier to deal with than a lot of the sort of more mental stuff. I think that's what really gets you. But that's beside the point. The point is like, you pick up your cross and you carry on because that's what, almost your duty is, as a man particularly, is to, you know, lead by example, have a bit of quiet dignity to the suffering, a little bit of grace.
I suppose, but
I like that stuff.
what happens if there's a suffering there's suffering, there's that,
there's
that.
bad suffering, and then there's really super duper
No,
bad.
but there's that, I guess. But would you not want to take away any suffering if you had the ability? Like if someone out there had the ability to take it away, not all of it. Like you can probably never take all of it away because like just existing is partly in suffering, like struggling, and you've got to be thinking.
Here we go.
Oh, it is.
I'm
what
telling
it
you,
is.
it's like 3 weeks away.
No.
Christmas is
But
coming.
that's more of like a Buddhist
We're in
thing,
Advent.
really.
Here we go.
It's more like your existence is suffering. There's a struggle. There's learning. Like
Yep.
disappointment. There's things that don't happen properly. There's your own mental abilities. There's coming to grips with your own personality and life and friends and people hurt you and whatever. But like if there's someone who's like fully what?
I was gonna say, could you imagine you're struggling? Like, I just hate my personality.
Yeah.
It's like, you can
Objectively,
change- yeah.
I'm like, what?
Sorry,
Yeah.
guys.
No, but I mean, there's an ego thing. You get an
Yep,
ego
yep.
hurt. There's like all sorts of different types of weird pain, and I guess there's depression. There's loss and grief.
Yep.
These are all vaguely forms of suffering or pain. But like, if you could take away, if there's like a 10-year-old kid or something, and it's like fully having a pretty average time, there's like a certain amount of point where how useful that is or not. They might make them stronger and stuff, but there's a lot of suffering out there anyway. And let's say the whole group of people had the ability to take that away with little to no effort and didn't do that. That seems a little bit like maybe doesn't pass the pub test. It's a bit untenable. I'm not sure, especially if the suffering's extreme.
Are you
Like,
asking? Paraphrasing. Are you asking essentially? Would you, if you had a magic wand, would you remove the suffering from an individual person if the case is extreme enough?
Yeah, that's right. If they're like a cripple, or if they had like extreme pain, or if their like liver was failing and they couldn't walk
They're
or
gonna
talk,
die. And it's just-
yeah, or they had like
Yep.
everything was pain, or they had bone cancer or something. I'm assuming you just like there seems to be there comes a point where how useful is that? You're like something that's actually killing you, or like actually debilitating your life, and there's so much pain your brain can't really function. It's just like sensing too much. You got too much.
I think it does
input.
shut down after. There's like a threshold of
Yeah.
pain you can tolerate before your brain just stops
Yeah.
feeling it, and it will cut it off.
Survival actually.
stuff,
There's
yeah.
not where you like knock yourself out a little bit, or
I'm not
is
sure if
that
you're not necessarily 100% knocked out. From what I know, it's different for probably different people, but
Right.
there is a point where you can overload your body, like it goes into shock.
right.
So people that get bitten by a shark, often they survive.
Oh, yeah,
I
right.
actually didn't feel anything because the pain is so much, the body just doesn't. Because you
Okay,
die.
that's like not
if you-
necessary. Yeah.
That kind of
yeah.
pain is not helpful for your survival. So
Right.
like we don't need to feel the fact that you're missing your leg.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah,
Makes sense. You mean like
it's too much.
here's a bit of
yeah,
pain. Look
yeah.
after this cut. Yeah, better do
Yeah,
that. But I feel like if
100%,
there's
yeah.
this thing's going to make you be like, oh my god.
Yeah, you
then
start
you
freak.
might
You know,
wanna,
so yeah,
deal with that. Okay, fair enough.
So there are instances.
Shock
where,
and adrenaline and all that.
yeah,
shit too,
where you don't, and you feel it way later, obviously, but.
Yeah.
But, and in the
Yeah.
moment, you don't necessarily feel the pain as you would normally. I guess. Yeah. Okay. I suppose the number one, we need to clarify because I'm a little bit confused. Not necessarily confused.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any moral objection to if someone is suffering, should we assist them or should we help them? I don't think anyone's arguing that. If someone like breaks their arm, you just walk past and go, suffer that.
Yeah.
Suffer.
How do you think about this?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Extra suffering? Yeah.
Suffering's good.
I don't know.
I'm
I
helping
don't know.
you.
Yeah, exactly. You'll thank me later. kid.
Learn from this.
Yeah.
Not to trust
Let
me.
re-break your arm. Yeah.
So we've said it. Looking pretty good.
Yeah.
What? You've not learnt your lesson, son.
Yeah.
No,
I'm
yeah,
not sure
yeah.
that is what anyone would argue.
No, I know.
against. I think it gets tricky for me where we talk about the pre-human life. We're projecting potential causes.
Right.
And this is a bit of
yeah.
a butterfly thing. I'm like, well, what actually are we doing? Because
Yeah.
do we know, and how can you ever truly know what will or will not manifest? And
true.
ultimately, who are you to make these decisions? Like you're not the creator
generally
of
when
the
people
first
interfere
one. It's not-
in
it's
serious
bad.
matters like this, a lot of the time it turns out bad.
Yeah, it's almost
Especially
as
when
if
humans do that
shouldn't
and they
do it,
get
yeah.
involved. But so I would use an example, right? So you've done a scan or whatever, and they go, if we were to do this, these 4 genes here are pretty much like a 99.99% chance that this person's going to have like full breathing problems, can't do anything. They might live for like a year or something, and you'd be like, okay, I think you probably want to like remove that set of genes, and so that exact same person could like maybe not have that. I think that'd be a bit mean if you couldn't do that.
That same
and you
person
did.
wouldn't exist though.
It would be a different person in some respects,
Yeah,
yes,
in some
but
respects.
I mean,
It would be an entirely different person.
it's still got the other package of information to create the human. That would have been similar, but
It's got similar. Well, they're called siblings.
Yeah,
That's what they are. Called siblings.
yeah, well, we're creating things. No, but so there's that, and then they go like, well, what's
Yeah.
a disease? Like, how do we take that away?
Sure.
Do you extend that to being like, well, if you're super duper short, that's not ideal. No, we're like, just to take
Well,
it
that's the
philosophically.
logical. Well, that is the logical endpoint. Is
Yeah.
if you're starting to select out things.
Or let's say
even
you're
if you
abnormally
initially
tall.
have- If you have initially very tight parameters, only terminal illnesses, then someone's going to come along like you and go, "What about illnesses that hurt you a little bit?" And then that.
Why is it
definition-
me? I'm just
I'm
the man.
philosopher, like some philosophers go,
yeah.
what is suffering? It could be
Yeah.
anything. It could be, bro, this guy has one arm. Like,
Yeah,
you want to kill him?
suffering is to
or-
be, therefore. No, yeah. No, but
perfect
yeah.
state of man, you
No,
must be
so
sacrificed.
Do you then like it does stretch though? You can like blur
It does.
the parameters
It's
and then
like
you
a
know.
definition of a really slippery slope. 'Cause You start with,
This kid's got the genes to be super slippery.
I mean,
Don't take him near slopes. This
yeah,
kid's stuffed.
you know, like if you start with a tight parameter,
Yeah.
eventually people go, well, okay, but if that's the, what about this that's right
Yes,
outside that? That's
right.
really bad.
Yeah, and definitions too.
Oh,
like
this
people,
guy could be blonde.
yeah.
But you wouldn't want that.
I mean, they can't. Yeah, look,
It's
that
rough.
guy's gonna get burnt in the sun.
You don't want sunburn, do you?
No,
that's
not
a
really.
very nasty 3-day recovery. You don't want that's suffering right there.
But I remember thinking, as an example, I think in one of the physics or ethics things I might have read or whatever they're saying. So you want ideal humans. If you give people, people do though. Like I mean,
You do want
let's just say a
ideal
person comes in and goes, "What do you want for your baby?" Most people will have an idea of like a relatively athletic person, and then really, if you give them a choice and they don't like have a lot of thinking about it, that's what you'd go for. So you'd go for tall in a certain way and whatever the cultural parameters of what you want, which is another problem because if your cultural, like for example, 30 years ago, models were very, very thin, looked a bit like a coat hanger. That was a sort of cool thing. And then all of a sudden it sort of switcherooed halfway through and now everyone looks a bit like Kim Kardashian. That's a bit of a cultural like switch.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like there's a different thing and now people like to be a bit more tan. Back in the day people had like wanted to be lighter.
Okay.
In like some countries people want to be really, 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 really light and some countries people want to be really, really tan and dark. It's a cultural parameter. Does that mean these people have the ability to be, or anyone who has a baby go, actually like think that person to be hella light. Get rid of all the melanin out of that person's skin or vice versa. Put them all back and we need to like make this person protected from the sun. These are just cultural changes. It's not like really massively.
Superficial changes.
It's not making, I think that's probably no good. However, if there's, a terminal of really debilitating something that's like a full, and now you're looking at terms here, like maybe disease isn't right. Maybe it's a syndrome or not, it's not even what, something that's specific. It has to be laid out. Because if you, let's say, I don't want someone who's really, really, really short and has, certain things wrong. The book I read gave the example of you wouldn't get people in this society where they get to choose all the characteristics like height, weight,
Like
muscle,
Tinder for
whatever.
your kid.
You just wouldn't get like
swipe
Danny
through what you
DeVito.
want.
Wouldn't exist. So you'd have like a society of all very similar people,
Arnold Schwarzenegger.
which is always not always turned out to be super spectacular because there's no like point of difference and everyone's like the same. Do you know? Like, that's not super spectacular for anybody. You don't have a interesting, unique perspective. You don't have different like ideas and stuff of ways of living and ways of being. You might eliminate sense of humor by making everyone super good looking and average. Everyone would be boring as a hat full of crap. Like there's a very subtle like changes that you don't foresee.
Glue stick eaters.
Yeah,
to keep it spicy.
You'd need some
Okay.
different perspectives on
Yeah,
life
yeah.
to make the pot turn. So that's what I'm getting at. I think there's a full dangers with this, and it'd have to be really, really like
I just
subtly
think the
restricted.
ultimate question is who gets to make this decision?
Yeah, I guess the
Is
parents.
it doctors? Is it the government? Is it the parents?
You get a form and you go.
I
Yeah.
don't know. Hey, quick! I want to bring producer Brennos in quickly because you mentioned something earlier that I think is really interesting.
Go for it.
Just on the eugenics, everyone wants to have. You said, healthy, athletic, kind of smart, good looking. That's what you want. And
Indeed.
I want to know if you, producer Brendos, either consciously or unconsciously thought about this when you were courting your wife? Did you think like, oh, I'm gonna have some great kids with this woman,
Right.
or was that ever a thought process for you?
Hey, so I think it's. I know you guys are struggling to hear me right now, but I think it's unconscious in that there's just a base level of attraction that everyone has, and there's a swipe left and a swipe right that everyone does in their brain when they first kind of see someone. I don't know if this is 100% correct, but this is just what's in my head right now. That there is like everyone's kind of judging everyone. That's kind of human nature. That's kind of in our nature of being. And so there is, you want to, so it doesn't have to be just on the surface level of appearance, but in intellectual and in every other category, you want someone to either meet or exceed you. So you're looking to do the best you can by our society's kind of worth. And that's definitely wasn't a conscious like decision to me. I think it's just it's a little bit of how we operate. That you are unattracted to people who, for various reasons, but like they're, you know that you're unattracted to someone. It's not just like you can it's not just like you can go against what your natural instinct is.
Okay, that's pretty interesting. Do you think, obviously being an eligible bachelor, you may have been on a date or two recently?
Yeah.
Is that something, when you're going out with a girl, do you consciously think like, oh yeah, I want a smart woman or a athletic woman or a funny woman? Like, is there a when you're talking with, like, do you have like a preference in the sense of like, I would prefer like a more athletic person?
Yeah,
and
right.
Do you think there's any consolation like, oh, maybe it's because I want to have babies with this girl? So, is there anything like that in your mind going on? Because I would say like I thought about it, like like I want to have good kids, and I want to have a wife that challenges me, and blah blah blah. And that, I think what Brendan's saying is like, it's kind of built in to your evolutionary biology. Like, you have like a direction you want to go, and you find someone that best kind of helps get there. Whether it is conscious or unconscious, do you find yourself thinking about it? You go, okay, Tasha, hey, not a real brainiac, so
yeah, no, definitely. I don't think you'd be crazy to say no in any, but that's not happening a little bit.
Yeah, sure.
Is it unconscious or subconscious? I always wonder about that one. People say unconscious, that's like this.
Yeah, it
but
could
like
be,
subconscious.
Subconscious.
Yeah, no, that's, I just randomly wrote that down. I don't know, but so, it's definitely complicated. So there's a cultural thing, there's like a historical thing, what you've had in the past, what you kind of think about, what you've seen, what you like, what other people like. It's all in there, like 1000%. A lot of it has to do with values and beliefs, and there's certain traits associate themselves with certain values and beliefs that you hold dear. For example, some people just like, number one is like athletic. It's like they like the gym. Someone has to always also have the values of looking good and be it's not just the looks. It's like to do with the activity and the strong life view. Are they strong?
Fast?
Is it a muscle mummy? No, I'm just joking. Am I really, really small? No, I'm just joking. There's other factors too. There's weird things like that. Or not weird, but it's whatever you want to do, I suppose. Sure. Their own. So yeah, then you'd be crazy not to. I mean, there's a reason why there's a universally people who, not universal, but very, very, there's like a person with a lot of people can say, yeah, we can objectively say that person's good looking. What is it? I mean, it's like proportions, and they say the golden ratio and all this. But they say it's something to do with your, a lot of it is to do with complementary traits. So I might not find people attractive as you do, but different. But like our genes are secretly talking to us and saying, this like complementary trait.
Too. Yeah, it's like you smell.
Like I've got weaknesses and strengths here, and that person smells subconsciously that they would have a complementary version of that.
That's pretty cool.
Therefore, and you might think, like what's a good example? They say like it's something to do with the immune system. They reckon if you've got a certain proportion, like Brad Pitt has a good immune system. Like they say that you're one, but it matches your one, so you might not have a good way of
ugly,
battling
you just
certain
got a
diseases.
bad, oh, Danny DeVito. Sorry,
You're
buddy.
always sick, eh? Sick again, are we?
No, Brad Pitt just walking around
Yeah.
shirtless in Buffalo. Okay.
Well,
thanks,
So what we need to do with your sickness is stuff the vitamins. We need to give you a facelift to make that thing go away. No, that's
Oh,
terrible.
mate.
But so
That's
yeah,
pretty funny.
yeah, they say that, and so some people you
looking
can show them and
privilege.
go, "What do you think about this?" And you'll be like, "That person's rank," and your mate can go, "I think that person's the best looking person I've ever seen."
I don't
It
know if that's ever.
occurs. Oh, some people have really interesting
I
ideas.
think you're right. There is a
Yeah.
kind of a.
I know people who
there is a
think Brad Pitt's
universal-
ugly, like actually.
I don't think so.
They think he's not. It's not my thing.
I reckon those people are trying to be alternative. They're not.
I only like.
I think Danny DeVito is actually the best thing. Like, you know what? I think you're just doing this for attention.
What do you like? Sasquatch. He's my man.
Sacha Baron Cohen as was he? What was the guy?
Borat.
Borat. That's
I mean,
the,
there's someone's
peak
thing.
male-
Not like a hairy bloke, skinny, tall,
I don't know.
thick hair.
Not sure. Not sure.
A little bit of
I think
misogyny
there are
thrown in.
universal.
Yeah.
I mean, because I get some crap from some of my mates when I was a bachelor back in the day, and they would say, you know,
Oh,
what's
that
your-
makes a
you
lot
know,
of
what's
sense then.
your-
I see what's happening.
Yeah, yeah. What's your like type? You know, blonde hair, blue eyes.
Yeah.
I'm like, I actually just think women are quite attractive. So
Right.
like, that's sort of the general gist
Yeah.
of it. And-
What's your list? Woman.
yes. It's a tough list. It's a tough list to crack. But you could look at
Yeah.
women from all over and you could appreciate the beauty and the differences, but you could still go like,
course.
that's an attractive person,
Yeah, 1,000%.
even though they don't look like my wife now.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Like there's I think it's, what I'm trying to say is the beauty is universal. Like,
Right.
people, no matter what culture, or you can still come and say like, maybe that's not my preference, like
Right.
100% first,
Yeah.
but I can still recognize like that's a good looking person. Do you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
fair enough.
That's a
For sure.
attractive person.
For sure.
Even if it's not someone that you're the most attracted to, you're like, yeah, it's still a good looking woman.
Yeah, 1,000%.
Do you know
Yeah,
what I mean? Like you
exactly.
see 2007 Jessica Alba.
2007.
Yeah, I don't know. Just
Yeah,
pick a
I
year
mean,
where
any
I
Jessica
feel
Alba
like
sounds
she
about right,
was-
as long as she's over 18 in this scenario. Sorry, but yeah, Jessica Alba above a certain age, let's go.
took that in a direction I wasn't ready to
I thought
go.
you were going to say so. That's why I was
2007, I think
like,
she's like 25. I don't know, whatever.
Yeah,
I just
okay.
remember her on a movie where she's in a bikini, like the entire movie.
Yeah,
I think
that
it's
would've
Deep
been a
Blue
few
Sea
of
or
them.
something. I don't know. Whatever it is.
Maybe,
I think
yeah.
the guy Paul Walker's in it. It's
Yeah,
like
what
a
is
yacht. It's a
that?
good movie. I think maybe.
I think
don't
it's a
know.
silly film, but I can't
I've
remember what
watched
it is.
it when I was a
Yeah.
young kid, and it was knocked my socks off. Great
Right.
stuff. You know, Jessica
Yeah.
Alba 2007. Whatever.
The only way we can find the treasure if you stay in that bikini in every scene.
What I'm saying is, I don't think there's a man in the world who would go, she's ugly.
Ugly, no, probably not.
Like you could say,
Not my
she's
style.
an
or
attractive
something.
person who's like, yeah, maybe again, and you factor in many things. If you're just talking physical looks, you're like, yeah, that's an attractive person,
Right.
an
Yeah.
attractive woman. Even though I prefer, dark haired, olive skinned people, to
Right.
a more Caucasian look, like whatever, that's fine.
Yeah.
No one cares about that really, but you can still just say, yeah, that's an attractive person.
That's right.
Like that is an attractive Egyptian woman. That's an attractive woman from South Asia. Like it's all good. Like
Right.
I can recognize that. I think that's a universal constant.
You can definitely say good looking. Yeah, maybe not attractive because maybe it's not your thing. Maybe
Okay,
you don't
right,
like-
yeah. So not attracted.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
I personally, no,
Yeah, yeah.
just a big fan of the ladies. But I would say like, yeah, you could recognize the beauty in different, like,
Yeah, definitely. It's
Yeah.
it's a thing.
sure. So there is a
Things
standard,
are. I mean,
think,
even
though.
yeah, with anything really. Like sometimes you can recognize
that person who
beauty,
says
but
Brad Pitt's not good looking, I think they're lying.
I think
I'd
he's a good-looking man.
I'd wager a guess that it's probably just to be like, oh, I'm so edgy and different, which is fine.
I think there's some
Is it
of-
a young girl? Is it like
there's,
it's a young girl?
I'm going to shame these humans. Who
Don't-
is it?
Don't tell me your name, Rebecca.
I'll give
Don't
he's
tell-
definitely younger than Brad Pitt. I don't think it's a young
Well.
girl, but there is part of it like that. Maybe that person finds disgusting. Like his style is like too. I don't know, man.
It's
I
just
don't know,
so
too
cool.
manly. Or something. I don't
Yeah,
know. Some
too
people don't
manly.
like.
You'd hate
like
that.
for example, some people like John Cena, so good. Other people are like muscles. Get out of my face. Like you know what I mean.
So many muscles.
So many muscles. Get out of there,
Guy's
man.
got
Stop pumping
so
up your
many
shoes, dude. Stuff like that. There's something about them in there that's just they don't like specifically. Could be a personal thing. Could be
Sure,
a experience thing. I don't know. Maybe they just don't like
Okay.
him. Like
Sure,
him
like
being
I
a
don't like his movies.
guy. Yeah, maybe they don't like
Okay.
Angelina Jolie or something. Who freaking knows? But-
Come on.
Yeah, but personality or there's some sort of value and belief system that might appear in that way, shape, or form. For example, some people think power is very attractive. So you could be like,
I think a lot of
pretty
people,
rank,
pretty
but very
much older
powerful and
people
confident.
think that. Have you seen some of the stats that came out about the Australian Parliament? And I wouldn't consider the
I
Australian
don't sit by and
Parliament.
get these stats of the Australian. No, I haven't. No, it wasn't on my feet. What is it? Yeah.
It was some ridiculous amount of people
Right.
in Parliament were having cheating on their partners.
Oh yeah.
and some
fair
of these
enough.
guys
Yeah, that's fair.
aren't necessarily like Brad Pitt looking dudes, but
I'd be
they're all
surprised if any of them were
kind-
Brad Pitt
well,
looking
right.
dudes. Yeah.
Because I think what's the old joke is like politics is Hollywood for ugly people.
Yeah, something. That is it. Yeah, I've known that for a long time.
Anyway, it was basically everybody was having affairs, and there was this like why, like they're not particularly good looking, they're not
Yeah.
like the wealthiest people, but there is this like they're very powerful though.
Power imbalance, long hours at the office.
Yeah,
Confidence,
yeah.
money.
Confidence just because I don't know, whatever.
Yeah,
Anyway, the
there's a- I don't
point
know.
is, and this is men and women by the way, it's not just a men thing. Like everyone's basically sleeping with everyone, and it's just a bit of
Personality that takes to get into politics in some
Just kind of
respects
a
is a bit of a
psychopath,
brutal
yeah.
person. So potentially
Sure.
they're a bit like
But
cold.
I think the attraction is
Yeah.
what I heard was they're basically rock stars.
Oh, in Canberra.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like to just, people in general find that super attractive.
Fair. I mean, I understand it in some respects.
Yeah.
I mean, there's the thing going on. I think Brendan, wanted to pop in just then. What do you got for us?
Producer Brendos, what do you got?
Oh, you just said my point, which is my point of view is politicians are attracted to power. So even though they're not all the most attractive people in the world, they are attracted to power. So they will subconsciously want to do those kind of mind game kind of things, like having affairs on their partners and do that kind of thing. I think it's just a trait of a human being that when they have that kind of thing, they also want the power of being in politics and that kind of popularity.
Damn. Well, I think it's a good point. I think that's to answer Cameron's question. Then I think it's power. I think they're attracted.
It's a
to
power thing.
It's a power
Fair
thing.
enough. Like the
Power is
rock star stuff.
Yeah.
People like there's certain people like attracted to that. It could be
Groupie
anybody.
type
Yeah,
stuff.
I mean, at this point, how actually attractive some of these people. Some of them not really, but
most
they can play an instrument. It's quite
To be
impressive.
honestly, yeah. No.
But the power thing, yeah, definitely
Yeah.
right.
Or the
Certain
celebrity of it.
personalities love the power.
Oh.
It's intoxicating, Jerry.
I love Seinfeld. Okay, great. Well, look, I think let's wrap up this idea. Where did you come down after this discussion? Would you, or do you give any thought with the in utero stuff
Yeah.
to like the butterfly effect down the line, like what you're actually doing?
It requires a lot of thought. I don't know if I'm entirely for designer babies. Oh, there you go. That's what I was trying to think of before. I didn't say
That's
this.
a trendy term.
Yeah, I don't
Is
think
that what
that's.
they're called?
I think
Like,
it is. Yeah, because
designer
you'd be like, I want a certain haircut or what? Not haircut.
I want thick, beautiful hair.
Yeah, like you have certain
right,
traits.
yeah. You know, like this beautiful thin hair.
Yeah,
just
yeah.
receding all
Listen,
the way. Like, yeah,
it's
thanks,
part of my
mate, yeah.
personality. I'm all about
Jeez.
it at this point.
We're watching the football on my forehead. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thanks so
watching the
much.
football.
Just a big
Yeah.
forehead.
Do you need a chalkboard? I got one. Yeah. Anyone got
We're
some
start
extra?
wearing baseball caps inside. Like, what's going on with this guy? Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
So, but yeah, I think I actually am pretty for. I'm taking away extreme diseases and stuff.
Yeah.
Unnecessary suffering. There's a kind of a different. I think we're getting at a different point.
Mm.
You are like giving me good points in the suffering. I do. As I was younger, I didn't think that you could. I sort of thought you could have certain things without it's like bipolar opposite, or bipolar. Without it's like sort of like dichotomy.
Sure.
Relation, but I think there are some things, and potentially
The
some
correlation
form of
between-
meaning and suffering requires. I mean,
Yeah.
happiness requires a little bit of, at least awareness that there's an opposite. A little bit. Otherwise, it's kind of like a mediocre zoom along. You kind of need the
Life
down in
is
some
just
respects to
this.
get the up. In some emotions, I would remove all of the disease. has to be like looked at as the definition, because you can't say, I don't know, what is it? Some guys like, you know,
Fat.
oh yeah, like, do you have a that's a really good one though, because they say that's like a disease. That's
It's
changed
not, though,
terms.
is it? Yeah, it's
Um,
not,
if
it's
you've
not
got
though,
a,
is it?
if you're born with a
Is it?
metabolism that's so slow, it's like
It's
some sort
not.
of problem potentially. But
I don't know about that.
yeah, but I'm not.
I'm not sure about.
I'm not really sure about
Sure.
Or
yeah.
you're born with a thyroid issue. I mean, it starts to get a bit extreme.
Big boned.
Big bones.
What
Someone
happens
could. There
in-
could be a thing where your bones are ginormous.
That's true.
I'm
I've seen
sure that's
many a
disease.
skeleton from
Yeah.
antiquity, and there are some big boned people back. That's crazy.
Huge bones.
Yeah,
Is it
that
Jono?
person,
Big bones.
she was eating a couple of Big Macs. She was eating big.
So, but yeah, I
bones.
think I don't know about choosing.
Honestly, it's actually not their
aesthetic
fault
stuff.
necessarily. It's like the corn syrup and all the crap that they put in food these days. It's probably screwing
It seems to
them.
be the case, right?
I'm
Oils
kind of
and
with that
corn syrup
RFK
and
guy where he's
stuff.
like, it's not even necessarily the fat person's fault, because what they eat is just so bad for your body.
It's a bit of toxic.
Some of that corn oil and stuff, or corn seed oil, whatever it is, like the syrup that they put in everything,
yeah.
in America particularally, where they have the king of the fatties,
Hyper sugary.
and like the
fructose.
body can't process it, so it just stores it.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know what to do with it.
Yeah.
Store it.
Turns on a hormone and says, like, get this thing out of here.
It
Yeah.
can't deal with it. So I'm like, I make fun because it is funny to me. Because I'm like, you can just eat organic food.
Right.
You could try that.
Well, if you don't have any money, some organic food's really
You
expensive.
can eat fruit
Yeah.
though. It's probably better for you than
could
the
have some
Cheesecake
fruit.
Factory. You know,
You
I don't
could.
see a lot of people stumbling out of the farmer's market, 450 pounds.
That's true.
But hey,
But yeah,
you watch
it's,
people stumble out of the Cheesecake Factory at 3 a.m. You're like, I don't know, man.
I like the Cheesecake Factory. We don't even have one of those. They're pretty good though.
We do actually have Cheesecake Factories. Yeah, they just
Do we?
they like, you know, not.
We have the
open
Cheesecake
24/7.
shop. But yeah, okay, fair
I'm
enough.
telling you right now, America it's a pretty special place.
It's very interesting.
It's a
It's
special
land of
place.
extremes.
It's very much so. Anyway,
What is your conclusion?
well, it
Switcheroo.
hasn't changed yet. Like,
It's all bad.
I just think it's bad. I think playing God is bad,
Right.
and I think because of even at the end of my life, I'm going to look back and be like, interesting. Obviously made many mistakes. Some of those
Podcast
mistakes,
era was terrible.
Come on.
yeah.
man.
Yeah.
You could say like, I think I tried to do this, it didn't work out, but
Yeah.
it pushed me in this direction, which actually was a bigger step in the right direction for me in my plan for life. But I would never have known that or had any idea that that's where I wanted to go in the moment. And like through my failures, I've had success. And you can't have that if you eliminate the suffering. And I would say broadly, like even at the end of your life, looking back, if you had complete clarity and you could just see your entire life and review it, you're still only able to see life from like a human perspective. Because I do believe in God and I do believe in creative design broadly. So I'm like, well, you don't have the range or the depth to properly analyze what you're doing.
Right.
So I think it's a bad idea to play God and to say this suffering is redundant when you don't know that and you can't know that.
That's not a bad point.
Okay.
Yeah, but
Let's
yeah,
go.
I'd still stick with whatever I was saying.
This
Yeah.
has been Two Blokes in a Cave.
Yeah.
Trying to get out of the cave. Until next time. See you later.